Hello, showy ovarians. Just a quick note before we get to this week's episode with Peta Mathias. I had some bizarre technical glitch last week, so if you were the 50 people who listened to Ali Moore for only 25 minutes before it cut out, there's another delightful 20 minutes to listen to now. And thanks to Lisa Conroy, one of New Zealand's top pinball wizards, for alerting me to that fact. Stay tuned for another instalment of VNN at the end of this podcast, but first, here's Peta, who I chatted to in a hot and sticky Auckland on February the 9th. Hello everyone, kia ora tātou, haere mai, and welcome along to Showy Ovaries, a podcast where I, starting to slip down the parched slope of perimenopause, Penny Ashton, learn all I can about what Mother Nature has in store for my follicles, fallopians, and fecundity before they flip their signs to closed forever. A quick reminder, as always, that I am not a doctor, though I do have a certificate from St. Joseph's Primary School in Papanui from 1980, age 6, that reads, "Congratulations to Penny Ashton for writing an 8-page story and doing good pictures." 8 pages, age 6. So I may be good at making things up, but if you need actual medical advice, seek an actual medical specialist. Today's guest, though, always looks an absolute picture. She loves colour as much as I do, is always a vision in floaty, frothy, floral fabulousness, and has written many a story and recipe herself, even longer than 8 pages. A veteran of New Zealand TV with her wondrous cooking shows, an intrepid global explorer who leads guests on gastronomic odysseys through many a different country when there isn't a pandemic raging, a singer, a solo performer, style icon, and one of my hair inspirations previously, which we will talk about. But please welcome Peta Mathias. Hooray! Kia ora, kia ora.
Good morning. Bonjour.
Bonjour, and ça va bien?
Oui, ça va très bien, malgré.
Merci.
Malgré tout.
There's my fourth form French there for you.
Very good.
How are you going in this muggy, sticky Auckland
I'm
weather?
very hot. I'm just kind of like, I've got this really powerful fan that is designed by an aeronautical engineer, and it's better than any fan in the world, but the fan makes me sneeze. So I'm simultaneously sweating and sneezing.
Sounds delightful.
Yes, surrounded by moisture, one might say.
Right, indeed. And you have moved to an apartment, I was reading, because you're usually in the south of France, but now you're here in an apartment. And how is apartment living?
Love it to death. In
Wow.
Auckland, I was born in Auckland. I've always lived in houses. Very cute, very gorgeous,
I'm sure.
but old Auckland houses which are damp, moldy and cold.
Yep.
And then with COVID, I had to move house. And so my friends owned this apartment because I sold my house in Auckland to buy my house in the south of France. And they said, "We've got this investment apartment. The people are moving out. It's now or never." And I said, yes, even though it was expensive, I cannot tell you the difference living in a modern, well-built apartment. I will never live in an old house again, ever.
Yep. And I am completely relate because when I moved to Auckland, I moved into flats much the same. And then we bought a house in Glendine, which I didn't know where that was. But it was built in 1987 and we have a heat pump, AKA an air conditioner, which I would marry if I wasn't already married.
Me too.
And I love it, and insulated, so it's warm, and and it just makes such a huge difference. So I think people complaining about people complaining about the Labour Party's healthy homes legislation can get in the sea because it's so important.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
People who complain about the Labour Party in general should jump off a cliff.
Yeah, I agree entirely. But anyway, I have now got a much longer introduction for you about even more of your fabulousness. So hold on to your non-existent hat. Here we go. Peta Mathias was born in Auckland and is the oldest of 6 to parents she has described as being wonderful, calling her mother a splendid package. She initially trained as a nurse, even working in alcohol rehabilitation centres in Montreal and Vancouver, before heading to London to learn all about the world of food from the dishwashing up, eventually buying and running her own restaurant called Rose Blues before heading back to New Zealand in 1990. It was there she launched into her hugely successful entertainment career, being charming and sparkly on the telly in Taste New Zealand, penning numerous books, be they about food or sex or fashion. Her book on Irish travels, called Burnt Barley, won the Best Literary Food Writing Award at the World Cookbook Fair. My favourite titles being Beat Till Stiff, A Woman's Recipe for Living, and her memoir, Never Put Your Eggs in One Basket, which is the best title of all time. Just last year, she released her latest book called Shed Couture, all about her love of quality fashion. For numerous years now, until COVID crashed her partying, she's divided her life equally between the south of France and New Zealand and led paying guests on wonderful culinary adventures through many different cultures. But she hasn't let the pandemic hold her back and has left a glittering trail all over New Zealand, reacquainting herself with its awesomeness. And I could not be more happy to welcome the showiest of chefs to Showy Ovaries, Peta Mathias. Hooray! Welcome along.
Oh, that really is history. I just about fell asleep.
Thanks very much. I spent a long time crafting that.
I don't remember ever talking so nicely about my parents.
Oh, really? Should we take that back?
No. They were good parents.
I love the term a splendid package. So your mother was an inspiration, was she?
My mother was a package, man. She was definitely a package.
Right.
I'm sort of like her,
right,
but with a sense of humour. My father was very sweet and very quiet.
That speaks
volumes.
volumes.
My mother was like dynamite.
Right, okay. Right, say no more. Right, okay. Now, one word that has always associated you, like I was reading about Nikki Pellegrino, who I'm going to have later, has written a book about menopause, and she describes you as fabulous, and it's often a word that is associated with you. And is that something that you love, embrace, have grown to love? How do you feel about that term?
Well, obviously one doesn't ever see oneself as fabulous because one just gets up in the morning, screams at the mirror, says, how did this happen to me? And then gets stressed. I mean, it's other people's interpretation of you. And like people like you and I live in a very special world where because we're performers, we get a lot of positive feedback that other people in a normal life never get. Yeah. We get people telling us they love us all the time, and the people that hate us keep their mouths shut.
Sometimes,
which is
sometimes
gratuitous most of the time. So it's an unusual life that we lead. And so, no, I just see myself as just leading my life.
Right, yeah. No, I felt like that too. It's like, and that's the thing about the pandemic. I haven't had 200 people clap for me for quite some time, but I find that very fatiguing.
Yeah, that must be it's very hard for performers at the moment. It's really hideous.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The government subsidies have been amazing, but there is no substitute for doing what we do and getting up on stage and making people laugh is just what I live for. So I've missed that.
Yeah, and it's no substitute. I mean, it's fabulous. Thank you very much, Jacinda. But it's nowhere near what you would be earning.
Yeah.
And you can never recuperate that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky to delay quite a few, but then you're like, my life, that's what I feel like right now. I'm doggy paddling at life, and I'm not made to do that. That's why I've started this podcast, because I was otherwise just going to drown in wine and crumbs on the couch. So I needed something to do. So that's
why I started doing my supper clubs, because I was missing my home in France so much, and now I'm living in this beautiful apartment that I actually can do a supper club in. And so
so yes, you're selling tickets to people. Is it just any people? Is it so it's not curated?
Anyone. It's on my website, and I do a supper club every Thursday evening and every Saturday lunchtime that I'm in town. So they just email me and they say, what are your next dates coming up?
Right, okay. And because you've been tripping about the country with book readings and the like for your new book, Shed Couture. So would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Well, that book actually came out at the end of last year, and the tiny tour that I was able to do of book launches at the bottom of the North Island was the third try that we'd had.
Hard relate, yep.
When Omicron came, we all had a fit, and then we all calmed down, and only one venue cancelled. The others said, look, we're just going to work with it. So they changed venues. They got bigger venues. They got 100 people into each one, and they spaced them, and people had to keep their masks on. And we had a ball because we were just happy to be doing something.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah. Because I said to you that I'm hermiting a bit because I have weddings coming up and I don't want to have to isolate. So I miss the income of the wedding and also feel very bad for the couple that they have to scrabble around after having booked me a year ago.
Those
Yeah.
poor people trying to get married.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it's so awful.
I know. I've had a couple of delayed ones, once or I've had quite a few that have just postponed indefinitely. But I've heard of some celebrants that have couples that had like 4 times trying, and every time is a lockdown. I'm like that with a show. Every time I have a show booked, particularly at Q Theatre, we have another lockdown. So I'm into my 4th postponement for my show for Q Theatre and stuff. So yeah, it's quite full on. But you are just getting out there. You don't give a shit. You are mingling.
Well, yeah, and in between lockdowns,
yeah.
I've managed to, teach guest cooking classes all over New Zealand, do events all over New Zealand, which I used to have a one-woman show. And so the events that I've been doing is kind of like a mini one-woman show where I combine singing and cooking. Well, cooking sometimes, talking, reading from my books, and mini fashion shows. So funny.
And why not? Why not?
And everybody gets dressed up. The wonderful thing is that people are so intimidated by the way you and I dress that they think, oh my God, I can't even go to a concert without dressing like her. So they turn up in these outrageous, colourful outfits.
How marvellous.
And when you look out into the audience, it's just a sea of happiness.
Yeah, and you know what? I haven't usually put lipstick on to talk to people online, but I was like, I'm going to put some lipstick on to talk to Peter and wear this dress, which is one of my favourite. It's royal blue with bunnies on it and flowers.
I can see it. And here we are sitting in our bedrooms wearing city frocks and red lipstick.
Yes, both have red lipstick. I know, and that's something that everybody, that's what you're known for, a style icon that way. And you said that your mother encouraged you to spend money when you could afford it on clothes because then they'll last forever.
Yeah, she was a sewer and she made all her own clothes and she made our clothes as well. And she was very stylish. But it was a very good piece of advice. She said to me one day, always buy a few really good, expensive, well-made outfits when you're flush so that when you're broke, you still look fabulous.
And I find, because I read that you had 100 dresses, or do you have more than that now?
Oh, is that all?
I thought you said that.
I actually don't know how many dresses I have because I've got 2 wardrobes in Auckland full of clothes, 2 wardrobes in France full of clothes, plus a storage unit. And I don't think it's to the point of an illness, because I am able to throw some things out. Like I threw out a Marnie dress the other day.
Right.
But if I'm not ready to let go of it, then I don't. Because, there are always dresses that come into your mind from years ago and you think, God, I wish I hadn't thrown that out. That dress was beautiful.
And do you still have your debutante dress that I was seeing? Right. Yeah. Fantastic.
I take that to the shows.
All right. You had a coming out ball?
Of course. I was a Catholic girl, Penny.
Oh, I see.
And we were introduced to the market. That's basically what a debutante ball is.
Yeah.
Originally, it's being introduced to the marriage market.
Wow. And how did you partake in the marriage market?
Well, all the girls, we all dressed up in white. And my mother made my dress, which was very beautiful and inspired by Mary Quant. And I begged her to lower the neckline on it. She said, don't. You're supposed to be a virgin. I'm not lowering the neckline.
You're supposed to be a virgin.
I've got this prim dress, not unlike what I'm wearing now.
Right.
Yeah, and it was really exciting. It was a really old-fashioned thing to do, but we loved it.
It's funny. By the time Catholic girls in the 80s, like my good self, got there, that was less of a thing, that's for sure. But I didn't go to a Catholic high school. I went to Presbyterian high school. And we had a leavers ball. So it's a similar notion, but it was less about the marriage market.
I suppose so, yeah. It's kind of like those graduation balls. I mean, we didn't have a graduation like the Americans do, but yeah. I mean, They still have balls now, but it's not a debutante ball.
Yes. I also have a lot of dresses. Mine, I think, are of a slightly lower budget than a lot of yours, but I love it. I've got about 100. And what I love about them too, and the thing is when you have that many, they don't wear out because you go through, so many different ones.
And also, if you love clothes, you look after them properly.
Yeah.
So they do last forever. The only downside is that you get sick of them.
Right.
Which forces you to complete the sustainability recycling cycle and get rid of a few to a recycling shop, which enables you to buy a new one.
Yes. And you're quite against fast fashion, is that correct?
Oh, fast fashion is the work of the devil.
Right.
You're not, fast fashion is like fast food because you're not doing yourself a favor by eating fast food. It's a false economy because it's poor quality protein and you have to eat again quite soon because you haven't actually nourished yourself. And it's the same with fast fashion and cheap clothing.
Yeah, I know. And it's a mess because the amount of resources, the water, everything that goes into making them is hugely bad for the environment.
Yes.
Yes. And we've all become quite addicted to our H&Ms and Kmarts and think, well, you haven't, but a lot of other people, because it is so much more affordable. But yeah, it's very difficult. Because like Trelise Cooper, those prices, my word.
Yeah.
Like she's one of your favorites, is she not?
Not anymore.
Ah.
Mostly I buy my clothes when I'm traveling in that other life that I had where I traveled. In sales, I very rarely pay full price for anything. I buy them either in recycle shops or in sales.
Right.
And I mostly shop at Scotty's in Auckland because
yeah.
they have a fantastic designer recycle section.
Right, okay. Right, now, to some questions at hand I've got here. Oh, no, first of all, I wanted to say how we met because I think this is hilarious. I don't know if you remember this, but I think it was LA Airport. Yeah, that's funny you don't remember this. You were at LA Airport and so was I. And I'm like, that's Peta Mathias, obviously. And I really needed to go to the toilet, but I was traveling by myself as I usually used to go to theatre festivals. And I need to go to the toilet and I hadn't checked in yet. And so I said to you, hello, Peta Mathias. You don't know me, but my friend Carolyn Sylvester is your director on Taste New Zealand, and I wondered if you could mind my bag while I go to the toilet.
Did I say it?
You were very accommodating, but I'm not sure if you were that into it. But you were very nice, and you minded my bag. So thank you for that.
Oh.
And then we met later on.
We've met a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. But that was how it started. But anyway, my first question is, this is what I've asked everybody, and it's been so varied and interesting. But what has your relationship with your body been like in your life, and what journey has that been on, and changes have you seen? It's quite a big question, but yes.
That is quite a big question.
It really is.
That would take me days to answer.
We can edit, but yeah, we have some time, but maybe not days.
I've been fighting against my body since I got my first period, basically, because that signaled to me that my life of freedom and ease and no responsibilities was over.
Oh, my word.
And when I saw that blood, I knew that this was the beginning of something, a life I didn't want. I wanted to be a child forever, and I wanted to be free and happy forever. And I knew that a period meant that was all over and it's just going to be worry and trouble from now on.
Oh, my word. So you never wanted children?
Well, no, that came later. That came a lot later when it came time to think about children. But actually, the period business was not a problem. I didn't have bad periods. I just sort of had normal ones and you adjust to it. But no, the reason I didn't have children was because I knew that I couldn't have the life that I wanted if I had a family.
Yep.
And it was more important to me to have adventure, excitement, and romance than look after children.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I would make a good wife.
I'm the same. I feel like I'm a good wife, but happily my husband is equally, we both high five every now and then going, let's just do something that we want to on the spur of the moment, and we can because we don't have any children. So that's how we feel about it. Obviously, it's great that other people want them. I love other people. It's so funny too. If you don't want kids, people assume you hate kids, which is not true at all.
I love children. Yeah, I love babies.
Yeah. I get very bored of a sense of humor after a while, which is hilarious. I'm like, yes, you've said that 5 times already. That's not funny anymore.
Oh, but children are funny.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I do. I have nieces and nephews, but I have friends who've gone, oh, my kids are going to be there. Is that okay? And I'm like, oh, my God, of course it's okay. Yeah, I'm so happy that you love your children and that people love their children and treat them with love. I just don't want any. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So that is a lot. So did you ever get over that notion that your life was over because you were bleeding? Like, what was the acceptance?
Oh, yeah. Obviously, I adjusted. But us women, men have it so easy. Us women spend our whole lives having our bodies filled with and penetrated by either doctors, men, tampons, sex toys, anything. We spend our whole lives having things stuck into us, and men just don't have to put up with any of that invasion.
They get a bit of a
And that
finger now and then, and to check their prostate.
Ew. Ew.
It's a very necessary thing, Peter.
And pain. We have to suffer pain every month. And then when you think it's all over, menopause comes.
Yeah. So was menopause a release to you, therefore, that you didn't have this period anymore?
Well, yeah. And I made it happen because I'd been on the pill since I was 17.
Right.
So I've always had hormones, added hormones in my body since I was 17. So when I started getting perimenopause, I said to my doctor, when I was 50, I said, I want you to stop my periods because I'm not putting up with periods and menopause. Thanks very much. So she changed my hormone dosage so that I wouldn't get periods, which is perfectly safe. We don't need to have periods.
Yeah.
You can stop your periods anytime you like. Doesn't do you any harm whatsoever. So she stopped them, and then she kept changing it became HRT. It went from birth control to HRT, the hormone mixture that we were using. And so I didn't have a desperately horrible menopause. I had terrible night sweats. That was the main thing. Yeah, itchy skin, irritable, snappy.
Right.
But always controlled by hormone. I never tried to do it without help.
Yeah.
I don't believe in suffering. I don't understand people who say, I'm going to do it the natural way. Hello, nature is your enemy. She's trying to get rid of you.
So you're fighting against it. Yeah, because I'm epileptic and asthmatic. I'm all about the drugs. Give me the drugs that work that way. So I think I'll be the same. I've just started some Ovestin cream, which for some, a vaguely irritable lady garden, as I like to call it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Ovestin cream is great.
Right, okay. So when you were on HRT...
I still am.
Oh, right. Okay.
I still am.
So do you mind if I ask, are you somebody that likes
I'm 72.
Thank you, right.
And
you anticipated.
I'm still on HRT, and every time I try to go off it, I get terrible night sweats.
Right.
So I just said, you've got to be very bossy with your doctor. I think Nikki said that in her book. We actually know more about our bodies than doctors do. And if a doctor won't give you the HRT that you need, then go to another doctor.
Yeah.
So I said, I've tried to go off this many times over the last 10 years, and it's just too disagreeable. I'm not putting up with night sweats, and I want to be on HRT till I die. She said, fine. So I'm on a very low dose.
Right. Did you start, though, when the whole breast cancer thing, like that was 20 years ago?
No, I went off it briefly when that research came out.
Yeah.
And then I realized it was actually my friends. It's your friends who tell you about menopause. It's your friends who tell you about sex.
Yeah.
My friends who were doctors and psychologists said that research has been discredited.
Yeah.
You're not going to get breast cancer from taking HRT. So I went straight back on it again.
Yeah. And that has been such a disservice to a whole generation of women.
Disservice. A whole lot of women suffered for no reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So then you changed to the newer ones that is made from yams now, HRT, hormone replacement.
Yeah, things have evolved and changed very much over the years. So at the moment, I'm using the power combination, which Nikki talks about in her book. And you use, for the estrogen, I use patches, which are called Estradot.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about that. And for the progesterone, you have to take both. And for the progesterone, I use Utrogestin.
Right. So that's the one she does talk about in her book.
Yeah. And that's the magic combination.
Did you experiment with these, with the combinations of them?
Well, me and my doctor did.
Yeah.
And we seem to have got it at a good level now, which is just a barely maintenance level. But if you try and lower it, you can do it really slowly, but at some point your body will realize you're trying to trick it. And you'll start sweating at night, and I'm not having it.
Can you describe the night sweats?
Oh God, they're hideous. It just hits you like it wakes you up. Suddenly you're pouring with sweat.
Right.
And it's not summer, it's winter.
Right, okay.
And it's not hot. And then it goes.
So you have to change the sheets, or is it because I haven't had any sort of hot flush?
Oh yeah, it's to the point of changing your nightwear. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right.
And you're just drenched in sweat, and then it stops.
Right. Okay. The authorities are coming for you because of the noise in the background.
It's really terrible if it happens during the day.
Did that not happen to you, Mark?
It never really happened to me badly during the day, but I had colleagues. One I remember very clearly. We were at an event, and she just her face suddenly burst out in huge beads of sweat. Yeah, and I felt so sorry for her, and I knew how she was feeling and that she couldn't control it. Well,
Yeah.
she would have been able to control if she was on HRT.
Yeah, right. Now, did your mother talk to you about it or teach you about it?
No, she didn't, but she suffered very badly from menopause. I realize now, looking back,
Right.
because of her behavior. She got depressed. She was very up and down. There was no treatment. Nobody got HRT in those days. Nobody got any treatment for depression.
Oh, wow.
She never went to a counselor. There's no such thing as counselors. If
Yeah.
you went to a psychologist, it meant you were completely bonkers
Yeah.
and you wouldn't admit to anyone. And so the only treatment she got was Valium, which just wiped her out. She just became like a zombie.
Oh.
And so I was very glad when she went off the Valium and went back to her exciting self.
Right. Her splendid package. Right.
But she suffered a lot and for nothing.
And did that, even though when you hit menopause, did you realize then that that's what had happened to her?
Oh, yes, because we were all talking about it by then.
Yeah. And that would have played into your decisions to just stick on some HRT, I'm sure.
God, yes. Yeah. I mean, we had a lot more knowledge and there'd been a lot more advances
Yeah.
made. And we were a lot more, women becoming aware of their bodies started happening in the 70s.
Right.
When they started writing those fabulous books, My Body, Myself. See, you're too young for all this, but those books were really instrumental in teaching us about our bodies. And they were the first kind of books that ever happened. And there were books called The Joy of Sex, which we just read avidly and went, what?
Was it,
really?
Did you use it like a textbook?
Shit, yes. Because it was really normal, and there were really normal diagrams of normal-looking people, and it was all very healthy. And so even though we were brought up with an unhealthy attitude to sex, we became healthy through these fabulous books, basically.
Fantastic.
And talking to each other. Because, that all coincided. My becoming a woman coincided with a lot of big social revolutions. The pill was invented when I was 17. That changed every woman's life. And feminism, Germaine Greer said, all those rules, forget it, do what you want. So we had the pill, we had feminism, and it was just like suddenly sex became good.
Not repressed.
It was like the air had always been clean and sex was dirty. Now suddenly sex was clean and the air was dirty.
Right.
And it was great. We had no hang-ups about sex. It was fabulous.
Right, okay. So the pill came out when you were 17 and you went straight on it. You were like, give me that stuff.
I went straight to the doctor. I made the mistake of going to the family doctor, who said to me, Peta Mathias, the pill is for married women who have proved their fertility to the state.
Oh my
It is not
God.
for girls like you.
Who have proved their fertility to the state.
Isn't that wonderful? He was Irish.
Oh, wow.
So I quickly went to another doctor and got on the pill.
Stick that up your jacksie, sir. Look at that. Yeah, that's astonishing. Wow. Yeah, so you have overseen quite the change in and almost some things back to Puritanism.
Women in my age group, we were it. We were so lucky. We paved the way for you. We made it easy for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and same again, like in comedy, I started in comedy 20 years ago and there were hardly any women. And it was hard, the amount of slut shaming. I've got introduced by one man said, please welcome our next act. She bathes in cum.
Ooh.
I had to lower the tone. Yeah, that's what somebody did when they introduced me. And, and that would never happen now.
God,
and there's so many more young women now. So it's just, everybody shifts something else along, which I think is great.
Thank God for the Me Too movement. But I mean, we did Me Too when I was 17. I marched down Queen Street for the cause of feminism. It really depresses me that women like my nieces are still struggling. Men still get paid more than women for the same job. I find that absolutely stupefying.
Yeah, and the sidelining of the women's health issues that haven't been addressed properly, particularly menopause, and there's been this incredible upswell just very recently about talking about it. So do you have sisters?
I do. I have 2 sisters and 3 brothers.
Right, and did you talk to your sisters about menopause?
Not really, because by then there was a lot more. I was the eldest, so by the time their time for menopause came, there was already a lot of information around, and I started writing about it because I've written about it in various of my books. And so things were much more open, and I don't know what their menopauses were like, actually.
You're right. Okay. Were there other issues that your body, you said you were fighting against your body your whole life. Is there other examples of things?
Well, I just found it inconvenient because I had a life to live and I didn't want to be bleeding every month. I just thought that was just horrible, inconvenient, dreadful thing.
Right, okay. And one thing you've done is you've let your hair, because for me, your red hair, I mean, you were Redhead Media was your company and things like that. And
Yeah, it was my brand.
And it was always this perfect shade of ginger. That's the thing. So did you always get it dyed by professionals?
Oh, God, yes. No, I would never do it myself.
I've done it. I've had it dyed by professionals once only. And I've been doing it since I was 18. So maybe twice. So I've been a box dye lady, which you probably think is horrendous.
It's a very expensive
Yes, it is.
Occupation, which I am now free of.
Yes, which is a big deal, like when it's your brand.
Well, when I told my PA and my agent that I was going to let my hair go to its natural silver color, they said, "Don't you dare!
Wow,
it's your brand. You can't ever not dye your hair."
Yeah.
So for years and years, I thought about it and threatened it and never did it. And then one day, about 3 weeks ago, I walked into the hairdresser and I said, "Do it."
Only 3 weeks ago. So this is brand new.
Yeah.
Wowzers. And it took 5 hours to strip the colour out.
5 hours to get all the red out.
Well, and it looks fabulous. It does. I thought you were blonde, but it's just white.
Well, that's sort of what they do is they put this sort of what they call a toner, which is like a semi-permanent colour, on just to sort of even it out a little bit. And then your own white hair starts growing in.
Right, okay.
So this is 3 weeks growth, but, it is pretty white under there anyway.
Yeah, but it does look, I mean, obviously because you team it with fabulous red lipstick and clothes.
Well, yeah, I think maybe the colour they put on it is slightly sort of platinum-y. I quite like it.
I know, and it would be liberating. One thing about lockdown was that I got a bit more of an idea of what my natural colour was, but not really. So I used to dye once a month as well, and so it sort of spread out a little bit more. But what I find difficult, you see, because I always do it myself, is they always discontinue the excellent ginger colours.
Yeah.
Every time I find one that I love, they discontinue it because it's too much,
and
right?
It really suits you too.
Thank you very much. Yeah, because not many people do it, so they discontinue them.
The only thing I was afraid of was that everyone said it will make you look old.
Right.
And, in fact, I don't think it has.
No, I don't think it has.
I think it actually suits my skin.
I would have thought the same. It would have made you look older, but that's why I actually thought you dyed it blonde, but it really doesn't. And it's such a change, and you embrace it. Is it exciting?
But I love it. I just love that I never have to have red dye all over my towels again. The secret to going silver, embracing the silver fox, is to have a very good stylish cut.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just look like the lady in the bread shop.
Who's the lady in the bread shop?
Or an old hippie.
Oh, right.
If you're going to go silver, you've got to really cut it beautifully so that it is stylish.
See, and I get my hair cut once every 6 months. You can see I'm a lot low. I'm a lot lower maintenance, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just like a lot lazier when it comes.
I miss having long hair because long hair is so easy.
Yeah,
you just put it on top of your head, and that's the end of the story.
Pretty much. That's especially in this weather. Oh my god.
Yeah, and I did that for years and years and years.
Right. Okay.
I loved having long hair.
So now, did perimenopause just start for you with these night sweats, and has that been basically it?
That was the first sign. Yeah.
Right.
And also irritability, short-tempered. It's hard to tell the difference between my real personality and menopause. Because I'm very impatient anyway.
Oh my, yeah, I'm so impatient.
Yeah, itchy, dry skin. My skin is much drier than it used to be. Yeah.
Yes, estrogen is our natural lubricant.
Estrogen is our absolute friend, and progesterone. You have to do both. You have to have the balance. And also my body temperature in general went up when menopause hit. Not talking about night flushes, just talking about general body temperature is hotter than it used to be, and that has stayed.
Right.
And that's a real drag.
So the south of France is warm.
Yeah, 40 degrees in the summer.
Yeah, you followed summer. Is that what you did? You didn't follow winter or anything crazy?
No.
Yeah.
I hate winter, and I've now had two. I set up my life. It took me a long time to set it up, and I finally got it to 6 months in France and 6 months in New Zealand. And I don't have winter. I don't own winter clothes.
Oh, wow. When was your last winter before the pandemic?
Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe 20 years ago.
Oh, my God, really? Wow. So this must be crazy for you. Did your elevated temperature help in winter?
Probably.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen my home. My house is in the south of France in Uzès, and I haven't seen it since October 2019.
Right. And you're just pining for it?
And I'm pining for my home. I'm pining for my life that I lost, my lifestyle.
Right.
Also, it's very unfortunate that I lost all my income because of COVID, because anyone who's in the entertainment or the travel or the touring business has lost everything. But, I am planning to go back this year. I'm going back to Uzès in June. I've got a full tour, culinary tour in June and July. So people New Zealanders are obviously feeling a bit more confident in spite of Omicron. I mean, I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel, even though the worst with Omicron is still to come. People are feeling more confident to travel. So I'm going to go back there, and I'm going to be there from June to the end of September. I sort of get the feeling that this might be the beginning of the end.
Our epidemiologist selves.
We're such
I agree with you. Total experts. One thing for me, and it seems like it might be for you too, is that I've found that I've been very on board with what this government has done, which makes it a lot easier to bear.
Yes. I mean, I wouldn't be so stupid as to think that it's the government who has created the situation we're in. It's COVID who has created the situation, and COVID doesn't spread itself. People spread it.
That's exactly right.
And so everything that was done had to be done, and we did a bloody good job, bar a few mistakes. Nobody's perfect in comparison to other countries.
Right, okay. Have you picked up any of the cultural attitudes around menopause or know of them in the south of France at all?
Oh, no, I have no idea what. French women are not as liberated as us Anglo-Saxon women.
Interesting. Right, okay.
But no, if there was any cultural heritage, it might have come from my Irish.
Yeah.
And you certainly didn't talk about that sort of thing. You were too busy drinking.
Yeah.
You didn't talk about anything, actually, to do with that kind of stuff. You didn't talk about birth control or babies or sex or anything. God, please.
Well, birth control was kind of rather a negative thing, wasn't it?
Well, it was just like, ew, you didn't talk. I mean, they were so repressed, the Irish. My poor grandmother had 9 children, and she would have had 12 if her last pregnancy hadn't been a miscarriage of triplets.
Wow. Right, okay.
And then my own mother had 6 children.
Yeah.
And so.
Was she still quite Catholic?
Very, very staunchly Catholic.
Right. So can you still do your, I'm like, I can't even remember what they are. That's hilarious. See, this is something that's starting to happen with old age. The glory bees and all that. You can do all your glory bees to the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost.
No, I have erased that sort of thing from my memory.
Oh, wow.
And I am almost a recovered Catholic.
I call myself such a good lapsed Catholic that I'm a pro-lapsed Catholic. That's how I like to But I can still remember all that. And it was funny. I was in church. It must have been a funeral, I think. And they just started, and it was like, God be with you and also with you. We lift up our hearts. We lift them up to the Lord. It is right to give thanks and praise. And I was like, oh my God, that is drilled into my head from primary school.
Other people had weird upbringings as well. I mean, I think it was actually a very colourful upbringing. I feel it was very ostentatious. It was very dramatic, incense and saints tied to trees with arrows stuck in them and people who died rather than be touched by a man. Purple, the whole of Lent. It was incredibly dramatic upbringing. And I think it's why I was so attracted to theatre and music and drama, because I was brought up in this mad world.
And when you break down, Catholicism, or, like a talking snake in a garden with an apple, and you just go, what is happening?
How could you not become a storyteller?
Right, okay. I have never thought of it that way. I've just thought about it as running as far away from it as I possibly can. So,
Yeah, but it did influence you.
right, yeah.
And you have to take the positive things from it. And a lot of people of my age say to me, actually, Peter, I don't think it's funny the way you put down Catholics all the time. And I think it's very funny. But a lot of people weren't sort of scarred by it. A lot of people had positive experiences with the nuns. I haven't met any, but apparently they exist.
I had Sister Saline was the most delightful teacher. She was really lovely. Sister Anna was also a very good
but
teacher.
They're different. You're a lot younger. In my era, it was like practically, it was just the tail end of the Victorian era. And they were very...
You're not that old, love.
They were very harsh.
Yeah, it was the 80s Sisters of Mercy, their little blue outfits.
80s. Just a dystopia, my God. Nothing like what we went through.
Right. Well, you've given me things to ponder about my Catholic upbringing that I've not done before. So congratulations. At 48, I feel I've done quite well.
Oh, my God, 48. You must be starting menopause soon then.
Exactly. That's why I'm doing this, to learn all about it. And it's funny, I did season 1. I launched on World Menopause Day, which I didn't even know was a thing until it was practically on me, which was the 18th of October, and finished at New Year. And then and I drove to Christchurch for Christmas, and the driving for 8 hours sitting on my Sacred Lady garden was a little uncomfortable. And I was like, oh my God, I've invoked menopause in myself. So that's why I've started on Ovestin cream. And I've said that I'm going to be updating people with VNN, which is Vagina News Network, to see how it's all coming along.
Take the HRT. That's my advice.
I felt like I wasn't quite at that point, so I just thought I'd start with the Ovestin.
Well, you might not be, and you may never be. Some people have no symptoms, and they never take the HRT. And I thought I would have an easy menopause because I had such easy menstruation.
Yes, and I felt like that too because I did as well. So we'll see. I'll keep everybody updated. But did you see my question about the fun fact about menopause? Did you manage to come up with a fun fact?
I don't really have a fun fact about menopause, but I have a gruesome period story.
Why not? Bring it on.
I was at an art opening in Vancouver and I started bleeding uncontrollably from my lady parts, as you call them.
Yes.
And just bleeding and bleeding. I'm like really bleeding, not just like, oh my God, this is an out of control period. It was like hemorrhaging. And I had to sit down in the middle of the art gallery. And then I had to lie down. And my boyfriend was frantically trying to call an ambulance to get me to the hospital. And it was a miscarriage and it was fine and it was all fixed up and everything. But the next day, the owner of the art gallery, who was a friend, called me and said, is there anything you wouldn't do to upstage me? That was a joke.
Oh, my. Oh, it was a joke. Yes. Oh, good. I thought.
No, he called to say, I hope you're all right. It was an art installation. And so.
That's yeah. Well, that was what you were doing as well, was an art installation. Oh, my God. Right. Okay. Well, that's not a not fun fact, but good. I'm glad that you recovered.
There are no fun facts around this business. And I really resent it that men don't have to suffer the way we do.
Right. I think that's become clear. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about around menopause, or maybe plug more book situations if you would like?
No, not really. I think, I don't know. The whole thing about, because my latest book is about fashion and clothing, that's all part of growing older and making sure that you look after yourself and that you feel happy and that you feel beautiful no matter what age you are. And wearing beautiful clothes is not a superficial pursuit. Being interested in clothes is art. It's culture. It's memory. It's identity. We learn how to dress from our mothers, from our aunties, from our teachers, from the women and men. If you're a man, you learn how to dress from your father and your uncles. And that carries us through our whole lives. And so really wearing beautiful clothes like you do is the closest that we'll ever get to being artists, maybe.
Right, okay.
It's the closest we'll ever get to art. And it also, putting on beautiful clothes, we found out during lockdown, makes you feel better than maybe you actually are feeling inside.
That is so true. Like when I first went to my first party after lockdown, I was like, oh my God, like putting on makeup and a nice dress. I just loved it. Because it's funny, I haven't learned any of that from my mother particularly, I'm not saying that she looks horrible, but she's never been massively into fashion, or my aunts or anything like that. So I've sort of taken inspiration more. Well, and for me, I hated my body for a long time. I put on weight with my epilepsy medication, but I didn't realize that was why. So it took me a long time to get to a more comfortable weight when I changed meds. But I've had this sort of push and pull for a long time. And it took me into my 30s before I really found my fashion and my feel and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to not have that in lockdown was pretty shitty. I just missed wearing it.
I mean, there are relatively cheap ways of making yourself happy without going on Prozac, like putting on a beautiful dress that makes you happy. Color influences your mood enormously. Like eating a really good meal that makes you happy. That's a simple way of making yourself happy. Like gardening.
That's a very new thing for me.
Gardening has secret hormones in the soil that make you happy.
Oh, right. Well, see, I've only just got, with buying a house, I'd never given a shit about gardening. And all of a sudden, I'm caring deeply about my flowers and all that sort of stuff. Right. It's a different lady garden.
Different lady garden.
Yes, indeed. But enough of that. Thank you very much for coming and telling us all about your menopause journey. We really appreciate it. And good luck with your new book.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice talking to you.
You too. See you later on. Bye-bye.
Bye. Au revoir.
Au revoir. À bientôt.
À bientôt.
So that was the newly silvered fox, Peta Mathias, who incidentally is currently singing underneath us. I loved how Peta kept including me and saying women like us, when I think my level of fabulousness isn't quite on par with hers, given I pay for 2 haircuts a year and have box dyed since 1992, but I will take it. I know you're all desperately hanging out for the latest VNN News flash. I actually think I'll change it from Vagina News Network, though, to Vulva News Network, as my internal chamber of secrets is completely fine, but my outer undercarriage was not improving. So I stepped up on my Ovesta News, which is a topical estrogen cream. But then I read a bit more and actually think maybe I was overusing the Ovestin, and that was irritating it even further. So I backed off, and it is better, but then it's quite sore again now. And I really have no fucking idea. I'll bet tons of women my age are constantly thinking to themselves, is this menopause or is this something else entirely? There is a condition called lichen sclerosis, which it could be, though that sounds like I have moss sprouting in my fanny. Woo! So once this Omicron wave passes a bit more, I'm going to go off to the doctor again, proving it's also an expensive business being a lady and why access to this knowledge is so important for all socio-economic levels, and why the fuck has it taken this long? As it's International Women's Day tomorrow, it's a 2-episode week, hooray, where I'll be dropping Nikki Pellegrino's chat about her menopause book, Don't Sweat It. Please do all the usual oversharing, like I have about my vulva, with this podcast. And hey, flick me a few bucks if you felt so inclined through my Patreon page. Follow me on all the socials, and I'll see you tomorrow on Showy Ovaries with Penny Ashton. Ka kite.